Nick Danger here. I'm a human trafficking analyst. I've learned a lot from interviewing survivors, interviewing people involved in human trafficking, interviewing police, detectives that specialize in human trafficking, and experts that rehabilitate people, that specialize in prevention of human trafficking. I've traveled all over the world to study human trafficking. And the Nick Danger program is a campaign to prevent human trafficking. It's a campaign to educate people as to how to identify human trafficking, how to rehabilitate and restore the victims, and how to prosecute these cases, how to investigate and to gather evidence to prosecute these human traffickers and to put them out of business.
I grew up in a family that was riddled with sexual abuse, and it was generational, it was cultural. Men had sex with little girls, and that was just accepted. I started being sexually abused when I was 2 years old by my father, my grandfather, several of my uncles, and eventually, after my parents' divorce, my stepfather.
The first time I was trafficked as a child, and I was 5 years old, I was chained to a truck stop bathroom sink, used handcuffs, and for 6 hours, I was raped and sodomized by a steady stream of men and one woman. This continued for 7 years.
Prostitution started for me when I lost my kids in 2004. And I didn't have no more go, and so I decided to go out to the streets, use drugs, because I didn't have the courage to commit suicide. So I felt like by smoking crack, it'd kill me. That's what I wanted to do. But I was so gullible. I didn't really know what I was getting into. I went in head first, and the more deeper I got into my addiction, the more terrible situations I got into.
Nick Danger is here to tell you how to analyze human trafficking, how to understand why it occurs, where it occurs, and most importantly, how to prevent it. How to prevent our youth from getting sucked into a human trafficking situation. It's easy. All it takes is one bad friend on the internet, and you can wind up in a terrible situation. So parents, teachers, educators, everybody needs to know what's out there.
My mother, my grandmother, they enabled the process. Even more so than enabled, they facilitated it. They were victims themselves, and it was really all my family ever knew. Everybody was in survival mode. Everybody was traumatized, and everybody was just trying to stay alive. And that was at the expense of all others.
I began being trafficked when my mother met a man who began to molest me, and he went from molesting me to using me for child pornography. It wasn't long after that he introduced me to the pedophile ring he belonged to. My initiation into the pedophile ring consisted of all 10 members raping and beating me before I left the room.
So we get to this yellow compound on Fitzhugh, and it's a code to get in and a code to get out. And they never gave me the code. And when we got there, he tells me, well, this is where you're going to be working at. Once we get inside, next thing you know, he starts beating me up. Just starts jumping on me and telling me this is where I'm going to stay at. They had a brother who had an apartment upstairs, who had everything, female items, makeup, clothes, everything we needed. It was other girls there. And all I really remember about that situation is every time I told him that I needed to go do something or I needed to go to the beauty supply store, he would beat me. He would beat me and then take me.
It takes a lot of awareness to properly fight human trafficking. That's what my mission is. That's what my mission is in this world, to fight human trafficking, to explain how human traffickers operate, how they use cunning and crafty and deceit and manipulation and drugs to coerce their victims, to brainwash these victims.
Eventually, the abuse turned into a money-making scheme for my father. He decided that he could make money at this, and he was very interested in making money. That was a big thing for my father. So he began selling me He started off selling me to friends, even trading me for maybe some of his friends' daughters, and then started selling me to gangs, bachelor parties, and finally he did also sell me to a pimp who ran a brothel right outside of Quantico Marine Base, and a lot of my clients were in military uniforms.
At the age of 12, I went to my mother's medicine cabinet and I took out a bottle of sleeping pills. And I went to the liquor cabinet and I took out a bottle of vodka. I went and laid in my mother's rose garden, which she valued more than she did my life. I downed the sleeping pills and drank the vodka. I was clinically dead for 3 minutes before I woke up in the emergency room.
Everything that glitters ain't gold. Don't, to the girls, don't listen to the smooth talkers. Even though it looks good, it might not be good for you.
Everybody can know about human trafficking. Everybody can contribute to prevention and rehabilitating victims, rehabilitating survivors, and bringing a sense of normalcy back to their lives. Because you have to deploy every possible resource to fight human traffickers. They are sophisticated, they are crafty and cunning, and they are everywhere.